in nature, you don't find water molecules by themselves. Water molecules, water's attracted to itself, so you always find water molecules in clusters. And I like to picture like a bunch of grapes on a vine. And these clusters, typical water, what we call bulk water, water out of your tap or well water or whatever, just normal water, is typically found in clusters of maybe 15, 20, 30, sometimes more molecules clustered together. And they're held together, they're kind of like glued together with what they call hydrogen bonds. And water is what we call dipolar, which means it has both a positive and a negative, just like a battery. That's why water can store energy, because it can be just like a battery. It's positive on one end of the water molecule and negative on the other end. And that's because oxygen is negatively charged and hydrogen is positively charged. And the two hydrogen atoms that attach to a water molecule attach usually towards the, I like to say on the top, to either side. So picture in your mind like that corporate image for Disneyland, the Mickey Mouse, where it's just a black circle with the two little ears on it, You don't see eyes or eyelashes or nose or teeth or anything like that. All you see is the black circle with the two little ear circles. That's sort of what a water molecule looks like. And the two little circles are hydrogen atoms that are bonded to the oxygen. So because hydrogen has positive charge, that means the top of the water molecule where the hydrogen atoms are attached to the oxygen atom, that's going to have a positive charge because each one of those hydrogens is +1, so it's +2. And then the oxygen is -2, so at the bottom part of the molecule you have the negative charge. So it's what we call dipolar. It's positive at the top, negative at the bottom. And since opposites attract, that means these water molecules are always binding, joining together or bonding together, because the positive charge of the hydrogen end of the water molecule will bump into another water molecule, and it will attach at the bottom where the negative charge is from the oxygen, and vice versa. So water always clusters together, and these are called hydrogen bonds that hold it together. However, they're relatively weak bonds. They're not real strong. They're called the handshake of bonds because they can easily be broken. And, in fact, they are. As a matter of fact, in ionization, that's what happens. When we run the water through the Kangen machine, when it's going over the electrode plates and the electrical current hits there, that electrical energy breaks up these bonds. That's how you end up splitting off the hydrogen atom from the water molecule, creating the negative charge of Kangen water and also freeing up the hydrogen gas that's in the water and giving us the incredible electron-donating antioxidant ability. It all happens because you can break those bonds easily. So in nature, water is found in clusters, but it's always where a molecule easily or several molecules will easily break off of a cluster, but then they'll quickly bump into another cluster and join another one, that kind of thing. So whereas ordinary water might be 15, 20, 30, 40 or more molecules in a cluster, Kangen water, when you run it through the machine, it breaks up those clusters. It defragments them. So typically when you're drinking Kangen water, it's going to be somewhere between 4 and 6 molecules per cluster rather than 15, 20, or 30. So it makes the clusters much, much smaller. And again, if we look at the example of the grapes on a vine, instead of maybe 20 or 30 grapes clustered on a vine, there's only going to be 4 or 5 or 6 clustered on the little vine. So one of the characteristics of these clusters is the more molecules in the cluster, the larger the cluster, the greater the number of molecules of water attached in this cluster, the stronger it makes the bonds. So the harder it is to break away an individual molecule from the cluster. And this is really important because inside your body, when the magic of life happens by water entering the cell membrane, in order for the water to get inside the cell, you have to get individual molecules breaking free from that cluster because the clusters are too large. There's something called aquaporin channels that are in the cell membrane. They're sort of like an hourglass. The cell membrane has 2 layers. So on the outer layer, it's like, the hourglass where something could kind of enter, but then on the center where it goes into the aqueous environment between the 2 layers of the cell membrane, it narrows down just like an hourglass does. And then when you get inside the cell where the water goes inside to the cytoplasm inside the cell, it opens up again larger. So, but the problem is the clusters will not fit through that narrow part of it. So the only way to get water into the cell to make life possible is to break free from the clusters. Well, that's something that happens all the time. It's what makes life possible, and or in any water you drink, you'll be able to, eventually some of those molecules will break free. They'll enter the cell membrane, and life goes on. But one of the great advantages with Kangen water is instead of 20, 30, 15, 20, 30, 40 molecules in a cluster, with only having 4 or 5 or 6 molecules in a cluster, that so weakens the hydrogen bonds that they more freely dissociate. They break apart more easily, so you have an abundance of individual molecules available. So you superhydrate your cells. You have so many more individual water molecules available that can quickly penetrate the cell membrane. So they've done studies with nuclear microscopy, which is a fancy kind of powerful microscope, where they can actually see water going inside the cell, crossing through the cell membrane, and also watch it as it's leaving the cell membrane, going out again with the waste products. And what they found is when you drink Kangen water, that process happens 300% or 3 times faster or more efficiently than with ordinary water. So that's a great advantage to drinking Kangen water. You hydrate your cells 3 times faster or 3 times more efficiently. What does that mean? It means all the things necessary for life that you need to have inside the cell: water, oxygen, vitamins, minerals, enzymes, proteins, glucose, fatty acids, all these things that are essential for life, they get carried into the cell through water, through the bloodstream, and that process happens. So you're getting all these good things into the cell 3 times faster, and just as importantly, the free radicals, the waste products, the carbonic acid, the leftovers after energy is created, those things, the bad things, are cleaned out of the cell 3 times faster. So it's a game changer. You speed up your metabolism, you have more energy available, and another thing, it greatly helps the body heal, because almost all disease processes, they all happen on a cellular level, and so many of them begin with the fact that the fluid inside the cell is becoming sort of like a fish tank that the water hasn't been changed enough. The fluid inside the cell is getting lower in oxygen, higher in acid, higher in free radicals, more damage being done to your mitochondria and your other organelles, and sometimes even your DNA. So this unhealthy, acidic, low oxygen, dirty environment full of waste products, metabolic waste inside the cell membrane or inside the cell itself, those things are what accelerate aging and disease, that environment. But when you can get the fresh water in 3 times faster and the dirty water out 3 times faster, it'd be like changing the water in your fish tank 3 times more often. So you just keep it fresher longer, and that promotes health. It promotes a cleaner environment inside the cell, a more alkaline environment, a more oxygen-rich environment, and an environment that's more conducive to healthy energy production by mitochondria. So everything in your life is better. Physically, you're just healthier because of it. So the microclustering is a great thing. And typically, they say 4 to 6 molecules per cluster with Kangen water. And I haven't read this anywhere, and I can't say it's an exact truth, but my interpretation of that would reasonably be, I think, that if you're making 8.5 pH Kangen water, you're probably getting around, on average, 6 molecules per cluster. If you're making 9.0, it gets more powerful, so all the properties are enhanced, so that's probably when you're going to get the 5 molecules per cluster, and you're more likely to get the 4 molecules per cluster when you advance to 9.5 pH. So, anyway, that's the microclustering, and that's the advantage of it. It just allows you to hydrate your body faster. Another advantage is that when you're drinking ordinary water or other liquids, it might take 25, 30 minutes for those liquids to leave your stomach. Because it's just they're macroclustered. It's just the way it is. It takes that much time for to be processed through the stomach and get out of the stomach. But I've read that when you drink Kangen water, it leaves your stomach 6 times faster than ordinary water. So a great advantage there is, and I take advantage of this all the time, is I have a rule in my life, and I've really stuck to it now. It's been over 17 and a half years as far as how I drink Kangen water. And my rule is real simple. Always start your day with the water. No excuses, and I don't do anything with my day until I drink my water. I'll wake up. If I have to go to the bathroom, okay. But other than that, I head straight to the kitchen and I drink my water. I won't answer the phone. I won't start a project. I won't shave. I don't do anything until I got my water in me. It's my number one priority is to start each day with. Well, I start with a quart and a half of water. Most people maybe won't want to drink that much, but that's just what I do. But I recommend that you always start with at least a quart of water, because while you're sleeping at night, the average person in 8 hours of sleep will lose a quart of water out of their body, because every time you exhale, you're losing water vapor. You know, like when you go out in the winter on a cold day, you can see your breath. It looks like steam. Well, the steam you're seeing is water vapor, and it doesn't just happen on a cold day. It happens every breath of your life. Every single time you exhale, you know, carbon dioxide is carbonic acid combined with water, so you're losing water every time you exhale. And typically in an 8-hour sleeping period, you'll lose a quart of water. So everybody in the world wakes up dehydrated every day of their life. So the most important thing you can do for your health is to replace that water first thing in the morning when you wake up. Unfortunately, the average American, about 80% of us, will go start their day with a couple cups of coffee, which actually makes you more dehydrated. So anyway, my second rule on water consumption is I never eat ever unless I drink my water first, and I make no exceptions for it. Doesn't matter, you know, if the kids order pizza and it smells good and I can't wait to get it, I won't eat it. I don't care. It's best when it's hot. I won't do it. I go straight to the kitchen and I'll drink my quart and a half of water, and then I'll wait 10, 15 minutes before I'll eat that pizza. So it's just my rule. My rule is water first, food is secondary. And the nice thing about the microclustering is if it was regular water and I had that rule, I'd have to sit there for a half hour. The pizza would be cold, you know, or a lot of times I'd probably give in and eat because I don't want to sit and wait a half hour. I'm hungry. But with Kangen water, within 10 minutes, it's out of your stomach because it's microclustered. When you start drinking Kangen water, while it's in your mouth, it's starting to go. It's so much smaller. It can actually penetrate the membranes in your mouth. As it's going down your esophagus, it can penetrate through the walls of your esophagus. It can literally start going into your body the moment you start drinking it. So you can, even if you're like me and you drink a quart and a half, sometimes I'll drink a half gallon at once. And within 10 minutes, I could go have a full steak dinner because it's already completely out of my stomach. That's another advantage of it being microclustered. If it wasn't, it would take 2 or 3 times, 4, maybe 6 times longer to leave my stomach.
Amen. That is great. That's and that also ties back to that antioxidant property you were talking about in the very first part of this stage. That electrical charge allows it to be absorbed immediately, and then it steps you right into the structure of the water. I'm sure that microclustering brings it right into the structure and how it gets in and feeds each and every cell. You know, I know when we talk about cells, people just think of something little, but if you could blow a cell up, what would a cell look like? Stu, under the largest of microscopes?
Boy, I don't want to be pretentious. I have never seen what a cell looks like inside under a large microscope, so I couldn't really say. I could say some of the things that you'll find in there, but, you know, as far as what they look like, I've seen imagery of what mitochondria look like. They're kind of like elongated, you know, with little, almost like a... what do you call those things in fancy English gardens where you could go get a maze, like a little bit of a maze of things running through it and stuff like that. But inside the cell, you've got your nucleus, you know, where your DNA is. You've got your mitochondria, which are little organelles that produce energy, and, you know, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. That's the energy currency of the body. And you'll have things like ribosomes, where the template, the blueprint of your DNA, which is called the RNA, where it migrates, you know, from the nucleus to the ribosome. It's like the instructions, so the ribosome knows which protein to make. You'll find something called lysosomes, which are little organelles that are basically like recycling plants. You know, they'll take the damaged tissues inside the cell, some of the break the structures that are dying or breaking down, and it will break them up, you know, for trash removal kind of thing. And some of it's recycling, you know, where they can take some of the amino acids and reuse them to make new proteins and stuff like that. Another thing that you'd see inside the cell, and this ties directly into the structure of the water, there's like a matrix inside the cell, and it's made up of structured water. So I'll kind of transition into that. So the fifth property of the water is that it's structured water. And, well, what does that mean? Well, water is meant to have a specific structure, and water originally, and in some places in the world still, but it used to be, water was hexagonally structured, meaning 6 sides. And like a stop sign's got 8 signs, and a square's got 4 sides. Well, a hexagon has 6 sides, and that's like a snowflake. All snowflakes have this 6-sided crystalline hexagonal structure. That's what Kangen water has, and ordinary water does not have that. I believe that it used to. I think before we had the Industrial Revolution, before we have so much pollution in our waters, our rivers and our streams and our lakes and our oceans being so polluted, I think that's literally denatured water. But there are places in the world where you can still find naturally occurring structured water where it's hexagonally structured. And interestingly enough, in those places, it's very common for people to live to be 100, 110, sometimes 120 years of age or older. And the most famous one is the Hunza land up in the Himalaya Mountains in northern Pakistan. Also, the Vilcabamba Indians up in the Andes in South America, up in Peru. Common denominators are way, way high up. Like the Himalayas are up, 14, 18, 19,000 feet up and stuff like that. And the Vilcabamba Indians in Peru, the Andes, it's up like over 10,000 foot elevation. But and the Azerbaijani region of Soviet Georgia, the Ural Mountains in Russia, when you get up to these real, real high elevations where you have glaciers, up at the top, or I don't know if glaciers is the right word, but snow-capped mountains and ice packs and everything. That when water's frozen, it has a hexagonal structure. As a matter of fact, when you freeze water in your ice cube tray, it'll take on the hexagonal structure. The freezing does that, and that's the way water's meant to be. And there's the 2 most famous water researchers in the world that I've been aware of. One is Dr. M.U. Shik, S-H-I-K, Jeon, J-H-O-N. He's from South Korea. He's passed away now, but he was very highly respected. One of the leading scientists in the world, and his specialty was water research. And for over 40 years, he studied the properties of water. And he wrote a book about this hexagonal structure, and the name of it was, something like the hexagon. I'm drawing a blank on it. It's something like water in the hexagonal puzzle or something like that. And in that book, he talks about some of the things I'm sharing with you now about how water is supposed to have a hexagonal structure, and how ordinary water doesn't have that anymore. It's pentagonal or 5-sided structure, which doesn't really fit within the design of nature inside the body. So anytime you're drinking ordinary bulk water with the pentagonal structure, once that water is drawn inside the cell membrane, once it's inside the cell, then it has to become structured water. It has to go back to the hexagonal structure, and in order to do that, it requires energy. So when your mitochondria are making energy, ATP energy, to run the function of the cells, a large portion of that energy, one of the main functions of it, is to structure this water inside the cell back into this hexagonal structure. And the great advantage with Kangen water is that's done for you before you drink it, because you can take ordinary bulk water, pentagonal water, and run it through the machine, and when you put that electrical current over the electrode plates, that means the mitochondria doesn't have to make the energy to restructure the water. The electrical current's restructuring the water. So when you drink Kangen water, you're already drinking 6-sided hexagonal water. So when that gets into your cell membrane, it frees up all that other energy for other purposes to give you more energy, for the cell to run more efficiently, and all that energy to be used for your health and longevity rather than just to structure water. So it's a huge advantage. And Dr. John, in his book, I think it was called Water in the Hexagonal Puzzle or something like that. But in his book, a lot of good information there, but one of the things that sticks out in my mind was he said that the more of this water that you drink and the more of your body tissues that are composed of this water, the healthier that you will be and the longer that you will live, and there are no exceptions. He said that applies to all humans, all animals, and even all plants, that this is the preferred water of nature. So having the hexagonal structure of the water you're drinking is a huge advantage. Now, he has passed away, and the person that I and a lot of others consider the leading water researcher in the world today is a guy named Professor. He's a professor at the University of Washington, Dr. Gerald Pollack, and he's written some great books. The most recent one of his that I read was called The Fourth Phase of Water. We all know that water and most things have three phases, like liquid, solid, gas. Liquid would be water, like you drink. Solid would be an ice cube or a frozen lake or something like that. And, of course, water vapor is the gas. But water actually, and I don't know of anything else in nature that you can say this about, water actually has a fourth phase, and it's called the gel phase, sort of like Jell-O. So it's not really liquid, but it has some of the properties of a liquid, but it's not really solid either. It's just like a gel. And the perfect example of this is if you crack an egg. When you crack an egg and put it in the skillet before it cooks, around you see the yellow yolk, but around it you see all the white area. That's a gel structure. And just like for your cells to be healthy, you have to structure the water inside the cell. For that chicken to survive, you need a gel structure around the egg yolk, and that's what the white of the egg is. So that's what a gel is. It won't really run like water, but it's hardly solid either. It's kind of in between. So he wrote a great book about that, and he's the one that talks about how inside the cell, water takes on this gel structure. And again, for that to happen, takes a lot of energy. And that gel structure, I hope I'm not getting too technical, but that gel structure is made of water. Also, you need like a matrix, some kind of scaffolding kind of thing to hold it together. And of course, that's protein. And the proteins have to be folded in a certain way, so that it can make this structure, this kind of lattice work. And that's what the energy does. The energy that the mitochondria produce in this ATP energy, a large part of that energy is used to unfold the proteins, to set up the scaffolding, you might say, or the matrix, or the structure. And the cool thing about it, what this structure does, is it's like the communications network. So when you get a hormonal message, maybe it's some testosterone, or maybe it's some adrenaline, or a dopamine, or some neurotransmitter. When you get some form of hormonal message, through the brain, through the body, when it comes to the cell, the way that it communicates with the rest of the cell, whether it's giving instructions to the DNA or to the mitochondria or to the various organelles, the way it does that, it's through that matrix of that gel structure. So whether it's the intercellular communication happens through the gel structure, the messages from hormones will happen through the gel structure. So anyway, it's a really important, essential part of life is this gel structure. And when you're drinking water that's already structured, it just makes the whole process much more efficient. And so there's great health advantages to that, to the point that you'll live longer and you'll be healthier, period, no exceptions. It applies to every single human, every animal, and every plant in the world.
By the way, the book's name for Dr. Jean is the Water Puzzle and the Hexagonal Key.
Thank you. That's it. That's it. The Water Puzzle and the Hexagonal Key.
Number of us looking when you were saying it's like boom, 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 boom. Excellent.
Yeah, I've got it here on the shelf behind me, but
excellent.
I don't know. It's too early in the morning for me. I couldn't quite put it together, but I knew it was something about the puzzle and the hexagonal. I read it like 17 years ago, so.
Right.
It was a great thing when I first started in Enagic in November of 2007. My sponsor, Tom Moore, amongst so many other good things he did to help me, I'll always appreciate him and treasure him because of it. Introduced me to the water, but one of the other things he did was he gave me a list of books. He says, these are some books you're going to want to read because I know you're going to want to know as much about this as you can. And I said, oh, yeah. So, I got all these books, like Alkalize or Die, Your Body's Many Cries for Water by Dr. Brett Manglage, The Water Puzzle, Hexagonal Key, Reverse Aging, The Miraculous Properties of Ionized Water, The Hunza People up in the Himalayas. He gave me a list of about 10 books, and guess what I did? I went and got them all, and I read every single one of them, and that's how I got started, with my knowledge about Kangen water. I just read all those books, and then it was just a matter of sharing with people what I'd read, and it just sort of took off from there.
Excellent. No, that's good, and that's a great place to start for everybody. I mean, guys, some of these books that we're talking about, I'm telling you, to be totally successful, these are some of the things you need to learn just internally. You need to know inside your heart why this absolutely works. I mean, that's why phone calls like this with Stu are so important, guys, is just to help you kind of bring some of that information. I love this. I hope that you guys are all taking notes. So, as we were talking, so that was the 5 different things we were talking about. We started off last month. But for this month, let's talk a little bit about soda or that sort of thing. What does soda do to a body, or what can we do to eliminate what we've been doing to our body by drinking sodas and such?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that nobody should ever drink it under any circumstance. It's that bad.
Amen.
It doesn't matter if it's diet or if it's low calorie or whatever. They're all garbage. We consider it cancer in a can. It's just nasty stuff. And one of the best things you could ever do is stop drinking it. And just to put it in perspective how serious I am about that, I have not even let it touch my lips in at least 50 years, maybe longer. I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't know any better, But once I learned, that was it. I'm done with that stuff. It's just so toxic in so many ways. The first way is it's just so acidic. Health is all about being alkaline. And some of the things that we eat that are going to leave an acid residue, at least there's benefit to them. There's like when you eat a lot of meat and stuff like that, meat's going to leave an acid residue in your cells. Almost all foods do to one degree or another. But there's so many nutrients in it, you can justify it, and your body has, you're going to take in alkaline things as well to balance it so you can be okay. But something like soda pop, there's no upside to it. There's nothing good about it at all. Even the water in it, you can't even say the water's good because it's actually going to take more water out of your body by drinking it than you gain from drinking it because it's a diuretic. It's so acidic and so toxic that even though it's largely made of water, it's going to take more of the free water out of your body to clean the garbage from drinking that Coke out of your body than what you gain. So you have a net water loss whenever you drink it. Plus, it acidifies your body. It eats away at your teeth enamel. There's just nothing good about it. Oh, and if all those things aren't enough, usually it's loaded with so much sugar and spikes your blood sugar so high that it causes a high insulin response, which eventually leads to insulin resistance, which, is involved in so many of the disease processes in the body, including Alzheimer's. So, there's just nothing good I can say about it. It's just pure garbage. And I wish nobody ever drank it. I just wish that everybody would learn how bad it is.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. How about reverse osmosis with added back minerals and that sort of thing?
Okay. Well, first thing I'll say is that I'm not a fan of reverse osmosis water. I think it's the 180-degree opposite of Kangen water. Whereas Kangen water is alkaline, reverse osmosis water is highly acidic. And where Kangen water is loaded, concentrated with minerals, reverse osmosis is devoid of minerals. And remember, we talked a little bit earlier this morning about how Kangen water is microclustered, so it enhances absorption and gets water to the cells more efficiently. Reverse osmosis is macroclustered. It's exactly the opposite. Instead of making the water molecule clusters smaller, it makes them larger. So the larger they are, the harder it is to break free the individual molecules you need to hydrate your cells. So estimates from what I've read are that when you drink reverse osmosis or distilled water, that maybe if you're lucky, 10% of that water will ever get into your cells. The other 90% just passes through your body. And one of the bad things about reverse osmosis water is that it's good at taking the bad things out of water. The membrane is very, very efficient at taking the toxins and bad things out. It doesn't take out chlorine for some reason, but a lot of the bad things it will take out. But the problem is it takes out all the minerals. So when you're drinking it, you're drinking something that's like pure H2O, which doesn't exist anywhere in nature. That's your perfect clue there. If it doesn't exist anywhere in nature, there's not a single river or stream or lake or pond or well or aquifer or ocean or any source of water anywhere in all of nature that has no minerals in it. Water's meant to be balanced with minerals. And when you're drinking this reverse osmosis with the minerals taken out of it, because it's a pure substance, it's highly reactive with everything, and it reacts with carbon dioxide in the air, which carbon dioxide is acidic, so that's what makes the water so acidic when you drink it. But also because all the minerals have been taken out of it, it seeks to balance itself, so as soon as you drink it, it goes through your body drawing minerals out. So where Kangen water donates minerals to your body, reverse osmosis is actually removing them. So that's my big picture. I'm against reverse osmosis, but I recognize, Wade, that your question was, what about reverse osmosis where you add minerals back into it? And that changes it a little bit, but it's still something I'm not a fan of, and here's the reason. They have these remineralization cartridges, they call them. You know, some people call them a filter, but you put them under your sink like, you know, the same place where you would put like a filter in sort of inline, you know. And the idea of it is to replace the minerals that were taken out by the reverse osmosis process. The problem with it is that almost all of these remineralization cartridges are what they call calcite. So basically, they're calcium, maybe a little bit of magnesium, but they're like limestone, you know. So they will put calcium back in the water, and they will put a little bit of magnesium sometimes back in the water, but that's about it. Well, there's 60, 70, 80 other trace minerals that the body has need for, and in nature, those things are in the water you drink. So when you're drinking ordinary water that's, run down the mountains and down the streams and penetrated through the soil and come back up, through the wells and stuff like that, you find all kinds of trace minerals in that water that are essential to your body in trace amounts. Well, when you're stripping all those minerals out and then all you're putting back in is mostly calcium, maybe a little bit of magnesium, you're not replacing all of those other minerals that were meant to be in the water. So even though you can get enough calcium back in the water to do a pH test drop and make it see that, it's purple or blue now, so at least it's still alkaline, that's true, you haven't replaced the minerals to the same extent that nature had provided them originally. So I think I just think it's not the best thing to do. And another thing is that there's really no reason to do that, Reverse osmosis is very inefficient, It can take hours to make a couple gallons of water, and who wants that, I mean, I love it when you go to turn on the tap and your Kangen comes out instantly and you can, make a gallon a minute, where reverse osmosis, it'd take an hour or two to make a gallon of water. So a lot of people, if they have RO systems in their homes, if they have a family, I mean, it's very common. You go to get something to drink and there's nothing in there. You got to wait for it to fill up again because it's such a slow process for the water to penetrate that membrane. And the other side of it is there's really no reason to go through all that inconvenience and all that denaturing and all that stripping of the minerals because we now have other forms of filtration that are every bit as good as reverse osmosis. There's a company called Ion Faucet, just like it sounds. I bet most of you are familiar with it already. ION and then the word faucet.com, their website. They have really excellent pre-filtration systems. They also sell reverse osmosis ones, which I always tell people don't get them. But they have other really, really good filtration cartridges that will take out almost everything and even some things that reverse osmosis doesn't take out. And there's another one I found. It's out here in Rancho Santa Margarita, California, and it's called. The name of the company is Clearly Filtered. Pretty easy to remember. Clearly, CLEARLY, clearlyfiltered.com is their website, and they have a really, really good filtration system. It takes out over 300 different contaminants out of water. I mean, everything that reverse osmosis will take out, but it doesn't take out the minerals. So why bother with the hassle and expense of reverse osmosis and the inconvenience of waiting forever to get some water and the idea that you're only going to get calcium basically and a little magnesium and not all the minerals that nature provided when there's really good filtration alternatives now that will clean your water just as well and give you all the minerals and water on demand. So that's sort of how I feel about that.
That's good. And then, so that's kind of the same lines in bottled water. So bottled water, what's your thought there?
I think it's a thing to avoid. The only time that I would ever drink bottled water is if I was really, really thirsty and there was no other alternative. Like if my car broke down in the desert and it was either die of dehydration or drink bottled water, I'd drink it, of course. But more than half of the bottled water sold in America is reverse osmosis water. So you're right back to drinking reverse osmosis. Instead of having your own in the kitchen, you're just paying for it in a bottle. And the other thing about bottled water is almost all of it. I'd venture to say 99% of it's in plastic bottles. And it's a major problem because water's the universal solvent, and it dissolves almost many of the things it comes in contact with. It will not dissolve glass. Glass is inert, so that makes glass is safe because that water could be in there for a long time, and you're not going to be drinking glass. But when the water's been in a plastic bottle for any length of time, you're drinking microplastics. And there's a lot of research into this now, and they're finding it's really problematic. They're finding in Alzheimer's patients in the plaque in their brains upon autopsy and stuff after they die, they're finding all these microplastics in there. They're finding them in the heart valves when they go to do heart surgery and replace the leaky valves and stuff. They're finding these microplastics. They're finding them in your lungs, filling up the tissues in your lungs. So I read some research that said the average, it can vary from, water to water, company to company and all that, but the average bottle of bottled water sold in America will have somewhere between 280,000 and 450,000 nanoparticles of plastic in every bottle you drink. So, you've probably heard about what the plastic's doing to the turtles in the ocean and stuff like that. Well, think of what it's doing to us. It's getting into our cell membranes. It's making our cell membranes less permeable, so you're not getting the nutrients and water into the cells efficiently, and it's literally contributing to many disease processes. So I don't think we should ever drink. Let me put it in perspective. If I'm not saying you can't ever drink out of a plastic thing, because we've saved people's lives by giving them Kangen water in plastic jugs, like a gallon of milk jug kind of thing. I mean, I think I told you guys a story about Charles, that had cancer in his liver and both kidneys, his pancreas, his small intestine, his colon. They sent him home to die, gave him 1 day to live, 2 maximum, and we took him 6 gallons of water in a plastic jug, and within 3 days his kidneys were working after 68 days of not working, and within 6 days he was out of his deathbed and off of morphine, and within 6 weeks he was cancer-free. And he did all that drinking it out of a plastic bottle. However, it was only in that bottle for a day or 2 or 3 at the most, It was you'd be freshly filling up those bottles. So it's a huge difference between, taking some Kangen water in a bottle to share with a friend that they're going to drink in the next couple of days than buying bottled water at a store. Because when you're buying bottled water at a store, well, first of all, and I read this years ago, that when they put that water in the bottle, they heat it up, real hot, because they don't want germs in the water. So you're putting really, really hot water in that bottle, in that plastic, so it makes it even more aggressively dissolving the plastic. But the average bottled water sold in America, they say, has been in that bottle for maybe a year and a half to 2 or 3 years before you ever buy it. It's been sitting on a pallet in a warehouse, or think about this Fiji water, where they're bringing it in a boat all the way from the island of Fiji, and it's been in the water in the bottle so long, you're getting an awful lot of plastic in it. So it's not to say that you can't help somebody by giving them plastic jugs of of Kangen water, because it's not in the water. The water is going to be drank before it's been in there long enough to absorb huge amounts of plastic.
Amen. Look, another question. How about these ionizers that are a bottle? They I don't know if you've seen these. Well, I'm sure you have. They claim they're an ionizer, but they're just in a bottle. It uses a little battery. What do you think about that, or have you studied into those at all, Stu?
Well, I've got a little bit of experience with them, but I don't want to be pretentious. I don't have a great deal of knowledge on it, but I would consider it sort of like, compared to enagic machine, it would be like a toy. It'd be like the difference between a real gun and a toy gun, or a real car and one of those little ones the 5-year-olds can drive a little battery on the sidewalk kind of stuff, As a matter of fact, Enagic actually came out with one of those things way back like in 2008 or something like that. It was like about the size of a thermos bottle or something like that, and it was like a little portable ionizer, but they quickly discontinued it because it wasn't giving any of the true health benefits that Kangen water was. It just doesn't have the power.
I remember that.
So it's a gimmick. It's probably better than just drinking regular water, but probably slightly better, but nowhere comparable to Kangen water.
All right, very good. That makes sense to me. Listen, I do have a hand up, and guys, we can take a couple questions. We're coming close to the end of the call, but I do have a hand up, and it's one of our top leaders, Miss Debbie down in Florida. So I say, good morning, Debbie. How are you?
Good morning, and Wade, thank you for taking my call. And Stu, fabulous information. I could listen to you for hours.
Thank you,
but
Debbie.
Thank you. I had a gal call me yesterday, the day before, and this is it's on the water, but it's breaking it down to like 2.5 versus ozonated water. Can you speak to that at all?
Okay. Ozonated water is a way of purifying water. Like, here we purify our our city water and stuff with chlorine. In France, they don't use chlorine, they just use ozone. So ozone is oxygen, 3 parts oxygen. You've got singlet oxygen, that's what a free radical is. You've got O2, where it's, 2 atoms of oxygen bond together, and that's like what we breathe and, and what we get in Kangen water and stuff. And ozone is O3. And what happens when it comes in contact with a pathogen or something like that, like bacteria or something like that, one of the oxygens will break free from the O2, and that single one that breaks away oxidizes and kills the pathogen. So ozone is great for disinfecting water, but it doesn't have the health benefits that you get from drinking Kangen water. It's not going to be microclustered. It's not going to give you the hydrogen gas. It's not going to give you the antioxidant potential. It's not going to give you the negative charge for detoxification. It's not going to give you any of the things that Kangen water does. It just is a great way of disinfecting water.
So she is with a dental issue, and someone had recommended doing the ozonated water to rectify what has become a really severe situation. And so, they had called me, and prior to finding out that somebody was recommending the ozone, and I said to do the 2.5 and irrigate with it. So I just was trying to, and then they came back with, well, this was another thought, and what are your thoughts on it? So that's kind of how that came up.
Okay. Well, Debbie, I would assume that this person, your friend, she's not talking about drinking ozonated water. She's just talking about using it as an oral rinse or a mouthwash to kill bacteria.
Correct. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it will do that, and it will probably do it effectively. But is it better than the 2.5? I really don't know. I know that the 2.5 is extremely good at killing germs. And I had a conversation a while back with Dr. Horst Filzer. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. I imagine some of you are, but he's like medical advisor to Enagic and Harvard-trained cardiovascular surgeon, taught at Harvard Medical School for 35 years. Really brilliant guy in Kangen water. And he says that the 2.5 kills every single germ known to man, every one of them, no exceptions. So will ozone do the same thing? Maybe, because oxygen is a very effective disinfectant. It's actually the way your immune system kills a lot of things is by releasing oxygen, singlet oxygen onto things and oxidizing them, stealing their electrons. That's how it kills the microbe. So I bet they're both good.
Right.
I just
so
don't
puts
have
them on
the
the
experience
same
to
playing
say.
field.
Pardon me?
I said it seems like it puts them both on an equal playing field almost.
They may be. I just don't know that. And again, I don't want to act like I know everything because I don't. But
no.
I know that the 2.5 is incredibly good at killing germs.
Right.
I had a friend down in Arizona that had gangrene in his foot, and they were going to amputate his foot. And I know, Jan, you know about Jim's story, and I know you've seen the before and after pictures and stuff. But he had a big hole in the bottom of his foot. It was so big you could put a golf ball in it and it would swallow the whole thing up. And it was all black and gray and rotten, and gangrene was setting in. They were talking about amputating his foot. And he called me for a second opinion. I said, no, don't let him cut off your foot. Get your Conga machine, start soaking it in the 2.5. And he started doing it 2 or 3 times a day, like 10 minutes at a time. And within 3 weeks, it was completely healed. It saved his foot. I mean, completely healed. All that black, dead, gray, rotting hole in his foot had all cleared up and healed. And guess what? No scar tissue at all. You couldn't even see where it had been. It was just a miracle how it healed. So I've never seen anything like the 2.5. I've seen miracles. Will ozone be as effective as that? I don't know.
Well, I thank you so much for taking the time to answer, and I just was curious because I was not familiar with it and trying to help her the best we can. So thank you so much, Stu. Wonderful information. I can't wait till the next time.
You're very welcome. One thing I will say, if you're having someone use the 2.5 as an oral rinse, which, is a good thing. I do it. I draw it up in my sinuses. It's great for clearing your sinuses. If you have a sore throat, you gargle with it, it's all that. But in your mouth, after you're done killing all the germs, it's good to take some 11.5 and swish it around and maybe hold it in your mouth for 30, 60 seconds because the 2.5 is highly acidic, and you don't want to eat away at your tooth enamel and everything. So the 11.5, after you've killed the germs, it's good to restore the alkaline environment with the 11.5.
Absolutely. Great advice. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Debbie. Good talking to you.
Excellent. That's fantastic. I have another question that one of my people texted me, and they're saying, when the water is referred to as living water, what does that mean?
Well, that's a good question. I've heard it called miracle water. I've heard it called living water. There's so many names for it because it's so incredible.
Right.
I can't really say what it means specifically. I know that water is the key to all life. There's nothing living anywhere without water, and this is by far the best water you can drink, and it enhances all of the chemical reactions that make life possible. I mean, it's just the best water you can drink, so it doesn't mean that other water, isn't important to life, because it is. But I don't have an answer for it. I just don't know.
Okay, that's right. Tara, you popped up your hand. Good morning, Tara. How are you?
Good morning, Wade, and thanks for taking our questions, Stu. My other question is that when you're drinking, or if you're giving, 7.0 water, does that still have the microclustering and structured properties as well? Can you explain a little bit how the electrolysis plates work, or how is it only for the higher alkaline? Thank you.
You're welcome. No, what they call clean water, the 7.0 water, it has none of the properties of Kangen water. All it is water. It's just water that's been run through a filter. So, put it in perspective, I've been drinking the water minimum 1.5 gallons a day for 17 and a half years. In all that time, I don't think I've had 1 gallon or 2 of the clean water. I just don't drink it. I just feel like, why? When you've got the very best water in the world with all these incredible properties, why would you have it and spend $4,000 or $5,000 to have it and then just drink water that doesn't have it? I just don't, I know there's times when you do, like if you're taking medications and stuff like that, it's okay to do that. I mean, I've never taken a prescription drug in my life. I'll be 75 in May, and I don't ever intend to. I mean, I hope I just go through the rest of my life and never ever take one. I don't believe in them. But if there's some people that just have to have something to drink with their meals, they're just so used to washing their food down, and you don't want to drink the Congo water with your meals, so I can understand why somebody might want to sip a little bit of clean water while they're eating. I just don't do it personally because I drink 1.5 quarts of the water, 10, 15, 20 minutes before I eat, so I'm so well hydrated before I eat that I already have plenty of saliva. I don't need to wash my food down and all that. So I'm not a big believer in the clean water, understanding that, you need it for taking medication and stuff for those of you that do. But I just think like it's kind of wasteful. I mean, it's like you have the chance to drink something that's going to be so beneficial to your body. Why would you choose to drink the one that's just ordinary? So, but the bottom line is, when you push that button for clean water, it's not going to go through ionization. it won't go. It'll run over the electrode plates because it's in there, but there will be no electrical current going into it. There's the energy that goes into the electrode plates to ionize the water to make all these special properties. When you're making clean water, it's like you turned off the electricity. There's no energy going into those plates, and so it's just the same water as your tap, except it's gone through the filter.